Okay, start over. You started with tequila shots at 2 o'clock yesterday
Well,
on the
three.
call with Kate.
Well, that's true. Tequila shots on our call at 2. Oh my God, that's true. And then went into more tequila thanks to my stepson who'd send us, a whole bar get up for drinks.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
with my stepdaughter who lives in Chihuahua. So we all had the bar boxes and he was just doing whatever he was doing at home. His wife is pregnant, so she wasn't drinking. But then it morphed from there into we just threw up another Zoom link and texted a bunch of people, spanning about 5 decades of friendships,
Mm-hmm.
but very different circles. And so over the course of another hour and a half, about 12 people popped in, and so that was hilarious.
And just kept socializing and drinking
Basically,
and
just kept socializing and
giving
drinking.
cheers to one another.
Yeah, and eventually we ate some dinner and went to bed, and woke up to a whole new year.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Well, that's good fun.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't think I told Kate what I was doing for New Year's
Hmm.
Eve. My graduate school friend Stacy, who actually lives in Portland,
Mm.
a couple of I don't know, days or a week ago, sent out an invitation saying, I want to have a dance party on New Year's
Mm.
Eve. And so we were on another kind of a social call, and I said, oh, can I make a request for the dance party? And she said, oh, I haven't thought about the music at all. And I was like, okay, that's
That's
a
a problem. You're
problem.
hosting a dance party.
Yeah, exactly. So, and nor did she like have Spotify or anything. So I was like, okay, friend, you need to send me like 5 or 6 songs to get me started. So we put together like an hour and a half playlist together on Spotify, which was fun to be working with, somebody you've known since you were like 25. And of course, we put on a lot of like old 90s rap and stuff we hadn't listened to in a long time. So that's what we were doing last night. Everybody kind of dancing in their living room, and her
Nice.
husband set up like a disco ball light in her room. So it was fun. We
Nice.
probably had, I don't know, 15, 20 people on the line at once. And just everybody had their headsets on and
Oh, that's great.
dancing together, which was fun.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that sounds
But
like good fun.
yeah, I mean, it is weird to be dancing with other people and then you're in a room by yourself, but
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
little weird, but
Everything is weird about this year, or that last year, I should say. Now that we can say last year.
that's right.
Yeah. I had good
Yeah.
fun. I sent a friend of mine who lives in Port Townsend a couple of bottles of bubbly, and I called the wine store yesterday afternoon and said,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, I'm looking for what do you have by way of a nice, higher end prosecco?" And then it occurred to me, I said, "You might know my friend," and I gave them her name, and the woman goes, "Oh, I know her. Caroline would prefer this bubbly rosé from Alsace." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" And she's like, "No, trust me. She hasn't bought that in a long time. She'll really appreciate it." And
Oh,
sure enough,
nice. Oh, that must be
they
a
knew
pretty
her.
small town,
Yeah,
or
it's Port
she's a pretty
Townsend.
big drinker, one of the two, or both.
Well, she's a big personality, and she anyway. So that was
She's
delightful,
like one of
to
those
call her.
extroverts that knows
Oh
everybody.
my God, totally. Everybody knows and loves her, and so yeah, it was sort of such a delight, to call this random wine store, and they go, "Oh, this is what Caroline would love," and yeah, of course we'll walk it up to her.
Uh-huh. That's
Anyway,
funny that her name's Caroline as well, because that makes me think of Kate's Caroline, who works in a
yes,
wine store.
yeah. Caroline
um,
doesn't work in the wine store; she just
she
drinks it
just
empty.
oh, she sounds like fun.
No, she's a hoot. She's also living with cancer, and she's like, if anybody tells me to start doing kale smoothies and daily meditations, I'm gonna stick a rusty fork in my eyeball.
Yeah,
So I told her
exactly.
I would sneak in an occasional thought to her at 2 p.m.
Along with a shot of tequila.
with a shot of tequila. Yeah.
Oh, how do you know her?
Oh, I've known her forever. She and I worked together in fisheries conservation when I first started training, 20 some years ago, out of grad school, and have become fast friends. So
I didn't know you did fisheries conservation as well,
yeah, that was my
Astrid.
first gig out of.
That's quite
Not anymore.
specific.
Not anymore.
Huh.
No, that was sort of my first job out of after my PhD. I had a coast-wide project that I was serving as the principal for,
Okay.
principal investigator for, and that's where I
Okay.
first met her.
Well, that's what Anita's PhD is in something around, I mean, she's anthropology, so it's
Mm-hmm.
more like around coastal communities
Uh-huh.
and livelihoods. And so maybe not as much the fish, but the people who fish.
Well, no, same here, right? So I'm an
And
economist
so
by
she did all
background.
that. Yeah, that's why I was like, you don't seem like
No,
that kind of a.
no, I'm not that kind of a fish head. No, not at all. It was a project to do with coastal communities and how they were being
Mm-hmm.
affected by fishery management measures
Mm,
here on the West Coast.
okay.
Yeah, no, not really a
Yeah,
fish.
so she did her dissertation work in the Philippines.
Mm,
And then we knew each other, but we got to know each other a lot better after the Aceh tsunami. And we both were working for Save the Children, and she was doing a lot of their coastal community
got it.
restoration stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
figuring out like what kind of boats do you give people to to deal with what kind of fish and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So
wonderful.
yeah,
Fish
you
heads
all
are
would
the
have a
deal.
lot to talk about.
We
Or
would,
perhaps your
but maybe
fisheries is so far in the past that
it is and it isn't, right? Because I have good friends that I made while working on that project, like Caroline. But I also still, because so get this, I was the first, according to many of the people that I interviewed. So I took an anthropological approach to parts of this
mm-hmm.
project, and so I actually went to every fishing port on the entire west coast of the United States, right? So I
Wow.
I I I met and talked to fishermen in every port,
Wow,
which is
that is a lot.
my husband and I joke I know a sailor in every port.
Right.
But or fisherman as the case may be.
Right.
But to this day, I still get random emails. I just had one the other day from some guy I met like 20 years ago, going, "Hey, Australia, you still doing fisheries? Can you help me with this project?" I'm like,
And
no,
so
dude.
you were doing interviews? You were going to every port and
Yes.
doing interviews?
Yeah. So part of the problem was that the fisheries management here in the U.S. was being done on the basis of landings data that really don't capture the economic reality in these fishing communities.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, if the data is crap, then we're going to have to collect new data and make it qualitative.
Right.
And we ended up developing a whole methodology for mapping the economic value of the fishing grounds because there was no spatial representation of how important
Huh.
different stretches of the ocean were. And
Right.
the artifacts, like the official fisheries data, are really riddled with artifacts because the landing information is collected by the fish buyers in port, and they don't give a shit what statistical area you were in. And
Interesting.
so I got the fishermen to tell me directly where they fished and how important those areas were, which
Mm-hmm.
was hilarious, right?
And
Because
then how much they brought in that
yeah,
like
that
they
we could
were.
that we could correlate from the landings data. We knew the economic
Mm-hmm.
value, we just didn't know where it was coming from. And
Okay.
so we ended up having to develop some new methodologies. I ended up writing a book about it, So,
Oh, interesting.
and then yeah, and it ended up turning into almost not quite a decade worth, but a long stretch of projects working with both fisheries managers on the coast, state and federal. But then also we did a ton of projects. This is all while I was here at EcoTrust. And then we did a whole bunch of projects with various states on the designation of marine protected areas to
Mm-hmm.
really advance that whole science of how you
Mm-hmm.
implement marine protected areas without wrecking people's livelihoods.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, fascinating.
Yeah, back in my sordid youth when I was talking, and of course with fishermen, right? Like they're either in recovery or they're just like raging alcoholics, right? And so you end up doing a lot
I
of
wouldn't
interviews
know
in
that
bars.
per se. I guess, I mean, stereotypically, I guess I would know that,
Yeah, no,
but
like
that's
most
the
of the
truth.
stereotypes are true. Yeah, no, I mean,
Mm,
there's a reason they're sort of in this lonesome profession.
mm.
Yeah, they're sort of yeah. So I spend a lot of time in seaside pubs.
Yeah, so I mean, I know we went to do the Fisher Poets thing, but have
Hmm.
you've done that in the past,
Oh yeah.
presumably?
Hmm. Oh, I know some of the Fisher poets.
I'm sure you do.
I think I can safely say there is not a Fisher poem about me. I hope. I
That you
hope
know of, that you
that
know
I know
of.
of. It's true that I know of. Yeah. No, but
Oh.
that followed me around for a long time. Like there were, I forget where I went. It was years later. I was back in San Francisco because this is in 2008 after Freya was born. We went back to live in California for a year for my stepson to finish high school. And true to form, I was still friends with the fishermen I had talked to in San
Mm-hmm.
Francisco. And I went down to the port, as you do, and said hi to Larry and said hi to Jim and said hi to Mike
Mm-hmm.
and all the guys, right? And one of them said, Dr. Astrid, you're still the first PhD who ever came down to talk to us about what
Right.
we do. Like,
Right.
oh God. I mean, it's like the most obvious thing in the world, right? You go and talk to the people who are doing the work.
Absolutely. Yeah, but it goes over the heads of so many people.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Well, here in the States, the agency that manages the nation's fisheries, it's like an agency of 3,000 scientists, of whom like 90% are fishery biologists, right? And then there's like a
right.
handful of, and then out of the other 30, 25 are economists, and then there's like this smattering of anthropologists, and that's it.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's
Oh,
fascinating. I'm
there
so
you
glad
go.
I
That's how
learned
I
a
know
little bit
Caroline.
more about you.
And we started with my drunken
And
debauchery, and then that is
and how far south you went all the way down every port down to San Francisco or even further?
further, no, all the way down to San Diego, and what's the southernmost port?
Wow.
Yeah, San Diego is
I'm
probably one
just
of the
thinking
southernmost.
that's got to be a lot of ports.
Blaine, Washington. Oh, it took me weeks. Yeah, it was a big project. There's some really obscure ports along the way, and there's some ports
Yeah.
in like some really interesting places, like on Indian reservations where they have interesting deals, right? The Native Americans
Yeah.
have like special fishing rights and so on.
Yeah.
It was absolutely
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah.
A
Are
lot
you
of
a
culture.
seafood aficionado as well?
Yes, I am. So much so that my friend Larry, the fisherman, one time, this was when we were back in the Bay Area, I think.
Mm-hmm.
No, were we still living there? Well, somehow I had said something about, there's this herring fishery on the West Coast in various bays, including San Francisco Bay and
Mm-hmm.
Humboldt Bay and what have you. And they fish the herring just for the roe, right? So it goes into these little jars of like fake caviar, right?
Right.
And a lot of it is exported to Japan. And I said something to Larry about, this is such a waste. There are so many people of Scandinavian extraction. I would take the herring and pickle it and sell them for like little jars for $10 a pop.
Right.
And he goes, pickled herring, never heard of it. And I was like, oh, next time I have some
So
herring, I'll bring you some.
they were with the fish, they were just discarding the
Yeah,
fish?
they were discarding the fillets. It
Huh.
was just being harvested. It was just being targeted for the roe.
For the
And
roe.
had been for decades. And so,
Huh.
weeks later, I get this phone call, and Larry goes, Astrid, you want to come down to the docks? I got some herring. I'm going, all right, sure. I'll get your herring, and I'll make some pickled herring to demonstrate to you what I would do with this
Right.
as a commercial product. He had like 2 5-gallon buckets. I'm going, that's a shit ton of herring, right? Because when you go
I
online,
know, because you usually have like a little
yeah, like look at any recipe online, and it goes, take 2 fillets of herring. And I'm like,
right.
how about 20 pounds of herring? Like, where's the recipe for the 20 pounds? So I
Right.
called my friend Christina, who's Portuguese, and I said, Christina, I have a problem. I have 2 5-gallon buckets of herrings. Do you want to pickle some herring with me? And of course, Christina being Portuguese and a foodie, she goes, yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
And we ended up finding a recipe from Paul Johnson, who's a famous seafood guy in the Bay Area, who started out a recipe like take 3 pounds of herring. I'm okay, great. We can scale that up. And we spent all weekend making pickled
I
herring
bet.
and having like jars and jars and jars to
And
give
then
away that year.
does that actually you can can that so that you can seal it and keep it, or you
Well,
just had to give away a
that's
lot
the
of
good.
pickled herring?
We gave away a lot of pickled
A
herring.
shitload of it, I
Yeah,
guess.
a shitload of it. And I
Uh,
don't think we preserved it over and beyond the brine, because I think if memory serves, it's essentially, I mean, it's raw fish sitting in a vinegar brine.
right. Right.
So I think it's pretty indestructible. Yeah, I don't remember. I don't think we pressure canned it or anything.
Hmm.
But we were very popular that year because we had made pickled herring and sour cream, and we had done the sort of classic, just in white wine and onion. And then there's like a German variant called Rollmops, where you roll, like you take the fillet and you loop it around like a pickle. So it's like pickled
And then
herring
do you
around
put
pickle.
that on that whole thing on a little cracker or something? That does sound
Yeah, I mean,
familiar.
so you can,
Mhm.
and then a lot of times, like like in Germany, we just eat the pickled herring with like a baked potato and some sour cream, for
Mhm.
example. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's a total cultural food. Yeah,
Mhm.
Larry and his wife were delighted when I showed up with like, here's your 20 jars of herring that you should be selling commercially.
But he didn't change his business, I'm
No,
guessing.
he's not a processor. He's just the guy who catches it. But he was so intrigued. And then I think years later, he told me somebody had started doing pickled
That
herring
yeah.
locally.
Yeah.
Yeah, fun
Oh, well,
times for
that's another
fishermen.
cool story. I
I could
can't
go
remember the
on
last
for
time I've had
hours with
pickled
like
herring.
fish talk.
Okay,
There's
fish
also
talk.
fish talk. There's also the time where he, again, same character, Larry, goes, these fucking octopus have been eating my crab. Because an octopus will invade a crab trap and just eat it, and then you
Mm.
pull it up and you've got the
I
carcasses of
mean,
it.
of course, I'm thinking of that My Octopus Teacher,
Uh-huh.
where he
Yeah,
attacks the crab. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So Larry was no friend of the octopus.
Hmm.
And he had this whole, so he had this story where he's like, he pulls up one trap and it's empty because the octopus has been through. He pulls up another and it goes on for like 19 traps. He pulls up the 20th trap and there's the octopus sitting in the trap. And Larry goes, and now he's in my freezer. And it was like a big octopus. And so I ended up with like, like basically the arms, right? The tentacles.
Right. Yeah. You
And
pickle
so we had,
those or barbecue them
yeah,
or
calamari,
whatever.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
fry 'em. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good fun. Yeah, I always had plentiful seafood when I was doing this work. Oh
Oh,
yeah,
well, the beach
good
that we
stories.
used to go to in together with Kate and
Mm.
our BLC clubs had an octopus fisherman that we just called the Octopus Man, and he was one of those old men who looked like he was 105 years old, even though he was
Mhm.
probably maybe 60 or something. And he would catch little octopus. I mean, the heads on the octopus
Mhm.
were small, and bring them up and sell them to us,
Mhm.
vacationing Westerners. And the kids would play with the octopus basically, and then we'd go let them go and not we would never eat them. And one time we went to the beach, my family and some Indonesians, and the dad saw the octopus out in a bucket and went in and cooked him up and came out, and all the kids were just like,
Horrified.
horrified.
Wait, oh, a pet. Yeah.
um, but it was a very delicate little octopus. I remember it, those little tiny tentacles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, barbecued up or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. No, this one, the one that I got one time from Larry it was
A
thick.
big
Like it had like
one.
big,
Yeah.
big. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could eat off that for days. It was great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, good,
All
good fish
right.
stories.
Well, good
Looks
fish
like it's just
stories
the
on a
two of
New
us.
Year's Day. I
Yeah.
know. Everybody else is sleeping it off,
Sleeping it off.
maybe.
Well, I got up long enough to realize that the new season of Monarca dropped, which is a Netflix Mexico series that I just adore. It is so dark. It's like toxic families, but so dark and so
Yeah,
well
I've heard
done.
of it.
And
I've
so,
never
oh
watched
my
it.
God, it is
Munaka? Is that what it's called?
Monarca. Yeah, I'll put it in the, yeah,
Munaka.
Monarca. I'm not I'm
Is
German. I
so it's
can't
on
roll an R.
season 2 just dropped?
Yeah, today.
Well, that sounds fun.
Monarca. It's so good. Oh my God.
Munaka. Oh yeah.
Toxic family dynamics, but done extremely well with extremely beautiful people who are not like your regular American actors that you
Okay.
see everywhere. So it's
Is it subtitled, or
you
is
can
it?
it's actually dubbed, so
Oh, okay.
it's actually pretty well dubbed. So you can watch it in Spanish with subtitles, or watch it in English.
Yeah.
And the dubbing is pretty well done. I
Oh.
think I think Selma Hayek is a co-producer maybe. But it's
Okay.
got this really gorgeous aesthetic. It's just so, and such an unusual story, right? Like it's this big family, rich family in the tequila business,
Mm-hmm.
and
That's
yeah.
why you like it, huh?
Mhm. I'm telling you, it's like this year is starting off with a theme. But anyway, it's really, yeah, lushly produced. It's yeah, it's truly
Okay,
well
I
done.
will check it out. I've been looking for something to. I'm always kind of looking for something to watch. I don't find series I stick with very often. But I just did finish Sex Education, which was brilliant.
You like that? Okay.
Yeah, it was a good one. That was a good one.
I have not. I have to check that out. I like all the international productions on Netflix. I'm really impressed with them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's a bunch of good stuff they've been doing.
Yeah. Yeah.